Hello, welcome to month 2 of your BYOB inputs. I hope you enjoyed month 1 and the discussion around stress and what it is and the reflective tools to get you thinking about the types of stress that are impacting you, whether that's work-related stress or psychological stress or external stress that's happening in your life. So I hope that helped you over the month to kind of start to understand a wee bit more about your stress. This month is really about a reminder of the basics. So when we talk about building our knowledge on stress and the tools and strategies, I take nothing for granted. So some of this stuff you'll absolutely know, some of this stuff will be a nice reminder, and some of this stuff will be new. So take what you want from it and take what you can from it. So just a wee reminder of what you did last month in terms of the kind of reflective stuff, but also, are you integrating that progressive muscle relaxation into your day to get the kind of different parts of the body tense and released? How are you managing with the breathing exercises? Are you engaging in that? Are you waiting until you feel stressed to engage that? Are you engaging that as a daily habit? Are you not engaging it at all? Something I don't think I mentioned it in last month's input, but I think as I reflected on the content, I think it's important to mention. A lot of times when people are feeling stressed, people go, "Oh, meditate." Now, I'm a huge advocate for meditation. I have meditated for many years. I meditate twice a day, and it's probably what keeps me sane. However, and if you're in a high state of stress, to sit down and meditate, to sit and be with yourself, to be calm and quiet, can be really, really not just difficult, it can be excruciating and it just feels really uncomfortable. So the breathing exercises that I kind of lead into that is just to create that sense of calm within the body. So if you've not activated the breathing exercises, so there was a 478 which was in the TED Talk video that I shared in last month's content, go back and have a look at that. It's about 16 minutes in. It's really simple, a really simple breathing exercise once you get the kind of knack of it, but oh my god, it really releases some really good, feel good, relaxing hormones into the body to make you feel less stressed. So again, just at the basics, progressive muscle relaxation, breathing exercises, and using the reflective tools to kind of question a wee bit about what's going on for your stress. So that was a wee roundup of last month. In this month, we're going to cover off what I call the basics, so the foundational stuff that will help you build upon your knowledge and skills and tools that you can resource when you feel stressed. So this first input is on emotions and our emotional life. So learning to cope with what goes on essentially inside of our minds and bodies. We're all human beings. We all experience emotions. Some of us are emotional, and as in they're expressive for their emotions, and some people cope by really suppressing their emotions. There are lots of different reasons for that. Lots of different experiences that you may have had. You may come from a family who don't express emotion and find it really difficult to express emotion. So when all that's rumbling about inside of you in a period of stress, yeah, that can make life just that wee bit more difficult. So as I say, we're going to focus this input on emotions. The kind of 4 pillars of well-being we'll go through in this full month's content. So again, is this the right time? Do you have time? Do you have that 15-20 minutes right now? Hit pause if you don't. Come back when you've got that time. Put it in your diary. Remember what I said about the gym membership. This isn't going to change your life if you don't, actively participate in it. But I get it, you're busy. So take some time. If this is not the right moment, book out some time to get that right moment for you this week. As we go through the month, we're going to talk about our physical health as well, our relationships in terms of how we communicate with others. So that's a really big thing in the workplace, but also in our lives and our friendships and our intimate relationships. And then we're going to spend a wee bit of time understanding values and your self-beliefs and how that interacts with each other, because we've all got different things that we place value on. And that can have a really positive impact on our relationships with people, but can also be detrimental when our values are aligned really differently. So it's a big month, there's a lot of stuff to cover. As I say, some stuff you'll know, some stuff will be a refresher, some stuff will be new. Take what you want from it. But as I say, I don't like to just assume people's knowledge is the same. And the reason I say that, I remember when I first started practicing, I was treating I was referred somebody to be treated for anxiety and anxiety disorder. I made it quite a thorough assessment, and this person had been to a GP, had been medicated for sleep and for anxiety. And what actually transpired was that person had been drinking, I think from memory, it was something like 15 cans of Red Bull a day. Um, they had a caffeine overload was what was happening to their body. It wasn't actually an anxiety disorder. So I never make an assumption about where anybody is at. So excuse me if you feel like I'm teaching you things you already know. But let's start from here. So let's talk a wee bit about emotional well-being. A really important part of your overall health. That internal dialogue that's happening within yourself, which is your thoughts, how you're thinking, what you're thinking about, which then interacts with how you feel, what you feel about yourself, what you feel about the world, and then ultimately how it affects what you do in the world, how you turn up, how you behave. So if you're emotionally healthy and in control of those thoughts and feelings, then that feels really positive. So when we look at our emotional well-being, it really is important to really understand how we're thinking, what we spend our time thinking about, what that then creates for us in terms of feelings and our behaviour. So having um, a healthy emotional system helps you be able to cope with life's challenges. So that's when stress can become difficult if the emotional well-being part of you is distraught already, and not able to kind of maybe potentially put things into perspective. So we're going to look at the emotional balance, emotional well-being, positive mindset, and a wee bit more in thoughts now. Again, this is a reminder of the basics. Some of this might be new to you, but as you progress through the year, there will be a kind of deeper dive into some of this stuff as well. So don't let it overwhelm you with the information overload. So let's look at, first of all, emotional balance. So kind of what is that? It's really about how you genuinely feel about things. So it's totally normal to experience both pleasant and unpleasant feelings in your life. That's life. If you are suppressing things that feel difficult or unpleasant, so you're avoiding the feeling, then the emotional balance gets tipped out. So it's really important to acknowledge when you feel or how you feel and not get stuck in one particular feeling. I kind of liken our emotional balance to a bit of, it can sometimes feel like a roller coaster because you can be quite up and down. You never really stay in one emotional place for long unless you kind of choose to. So just acknowledging, what feels pleasant, what feels unpleasant, and being genuinely authentic with that conversation to yourself. So sometimes people really struggle with emotions, and again it depends on what your experience has been like in life and in the world, and it's okay if you don't feel the things that we're talking about, or you don't know how to articulate them. This will come when we spend more time understanding our own stresses. So these are the kind of 10 most common positive emotions. So amusement, awe, gratitude, hope, inspiration, interest, joy, love, pride, serenity. These are kind of the places that make you feel good, essentially. They release all the happy hormones. And, to feel that nice balance, you want to feel or acknowledge when you do feel some of that. So you can create a state for yourself. So, for example, gratitude, you probably heard about gratitude journaling, which we'll cover in a wee bit later on. But that creates a state, an emotional state within you when you place yourself to doing gratitude journaling. So what you're doing is changing your emotional state. You are actually in control of your emotional state. So if you are in, hate or anger, you can switch emotions, you can switch gear. It's just about becoming aware of what that emotional state is. What is it trying to tell you? What does it serve you? And is it worth switching it over to somewhere else? So I'll leave them there. You can have a wee read through, what amusement is. All of these emotions are things that I practice every single day. Even if I feel like a bit low or a bit flat, like I try and find the joy in life, I try and find the joy in my day, and there's plenty to kind of celebrate. if you feel like you're really struggling to find anything good to focus on emotionally, look at these words. There'll be something that will make you feel love or pride or joy or feel interested in and feel hopeful for. Sometimes we just need a wee reminder, especially if life's been really tricky and tough. It's very easy to fall into a negative emotional state. So these are words to describe negative emotions such as anger, disgust, contempt, embarrassment, fear, frustration, guilt, sadness, shame, and stress. They're all really heavy negative emotions, and when we live in those emotional states, what can happen is that it really changes who we are. It changes our view of the world, how we interact with the world. And by the world, I mean your world, so how you engage with yourself, with others. So if you're, potentially living in a headspace of anger, you might feel a lot of hostility. You might see a lot of things that, feel angering to you, that feel really triggering. So the purpose of this discussion and this exercise isn't for you to go, oh, well, I can't have any negative emotions. Negative emotions serve a purpose also. They tell us something. It's all right to be angry. Like if somebody's, done something bad to you, it's all right to be angry. Not acknowledging your anger is where some of the problems rise from. And a lot of that can come down to how we communicate with each other as well. And we'll talk about that within our relationships, how we assertively communicate our own needs. So positive emotions, negative emotions, all good. But what we don't want to do is live in some of this stuff. So we don't want to live in guilt and shame and stress and sadness, because that then starts to create anxiety and depression. When we're in these negative emotional states, we start to withdraw from the world, we start to do things differently, and we stop enjoying life. So if you recognise that you're perhaps living a wee bit more in these negative emotional states, this is a really important exercise for you, just to start becoming aware of what you can do about that. So let's talk about thoughts. So I touched on earlier, the emotional well-being being connected to your thoughts, feelings and behaviours. Your thoughts are, no you, right? They are there, they happen all day, every day. They reckon an estimate was made that every human being has around 70,000 thoughts a day. So how we think is important, but it's kind of pre-programmed. So most of the time, 90% of the day, you will be kind of thinking the same stuff. I get up in the morning, you go through the same routine, going to work, thinking the same kind of things. So if you're in one of those negative emotional states, so we're talking about anger, fear, disgust, what are you thinking about? What kind of stuff do you spend your day thinking about? And the reason I say that's really, really important to become aware. Most people at this point, if you've not done any of the work previously with the talking rooms or in BYOB or any previous kind of work like this, like, what are you on about? My thoughts. But really starting to spend some time, like for me, it's like a wee voice in my head. That's how I experience my thoughts. Some people visualize, they see, pictures of what they're thinking about. Some people hear it. And everybody's experience of their thoughts are different, but what are they? Are they negative? Are they useful? Are they helpful? Are they positive? Do they serve any purpose for you? So if you're in a headspace where your thoughts are like, you're useless, you're ugly, you're no worthy, good enough, that's a good old favourite for most people's brains. That then starts to perpetuate a way of being. It starts to create these negative emotions, like I might feel afraid. And then what I might do in terms of my behaviour, I might start avoiding things that make me feel like that, and that stops me from getting to maybe perhaps what I want to do in my life. So it's really, really important to start to understand how powerful our thoughts can be, but it's not impossible to change how you think. So neuroscience, neuroplasticity it's called. So you've got wee neural pathways that basically connect the dots, right, between, the thought and you becoming aware of the thought. And those, the more you've kind of thought maybe negative things about yourself or the world or others, the more you've thought about the kind of more entrenched that pathway becomes. So what that means is it's easier to get to the thought. It's not so difficult to get to the thought, to believe the thought. So you've thought it so often that you believe it, but that does not necessarily make it true. Trust me, just because you think it doesn't make it true. But neuroscience has taught us neuroplasticity, and that basically means that we can change the way that we think. However, it takes a wee bit of work, So imagine your new thought process being like a kind of overgrown pathway. And every time you think a new thought, you're chipping away at that overgrown pathway until it becomes a nice clear pathway and that you can get to that thought really easily. So the same way as you're getting to a negative thought just now because you walked that path many, many times, you want to stop thinking along those lines so that that pathway can become overgrown and those thoughts become difficult to achieve. And the new kind of more helpful thoughts, and it's not happy clappy, have to think positive. It's, what is helpful to me? Because life's tough enough without being giving yourself a hard time. So that it's possible to change your thoughts, but the key is, in the first instance, is really becoming aware of what you spend your time thinking about and where does your head live at. So here's a wee example. Two different people, the same situation, they receive a negative evaluation at work. So this is what we would call in therapy land a 5-factor. So we're looking at different factors surrounding a situation, and we are all unique because we all think slightly differently. So Jason's reaction to getting a negative evaluation at work is, I can't do anything right, I bet I get fired because of this. So his emotions are depressed, nervous, I would imagine fearful as well. And then his behaviour is he starts avoiding his boss because he thinks he's in trouble and he feels nervous at work, and then his performance is affected. So that becomes then a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? He's had a negative evaluation at work and then he actually it starts to impact his performance. So that thinking and that emotion is really key here. Is like, well, what evidence do I have to just have had a negative evaluation at work? What could I potentially maybe be doing about that? Something different. Pete, on the other hand, he thought maybe I didn't work hard enough, I maybe come up with something better next time, and I'll do a wee bit of training to get my skills set up. So he's looking at it from a solution focused up, he's trying to solve the problem. And he's disappointed, that's natural when you get a bit of negative feedback. It can feel disappointing, but it can also help motivate you to make a bit of a change and take a bit of ownership. Sometimes things slip and that's okay, so, then his behaviour is he talks to his boss about how he can improve, looks for a bit of guidance, and approaches it as a challenge, and starts to make some improvements. So that one situation could have results, differently for depending on how people actually think, and then how it then impacts how they feel and how they behave. Now these are really just very quick examples, but I want to get the old cogs going for you to think about situations that you find yourself in and what thoughts come up for you. What is the negative thought? So where we're trying to get to, as I say, it's not necessarily a positive thought, but it's a rational thought, it's a helpful thought. So Amy and Sarah both have an argument with their best friend. Amy's negative thought is, we always argue, she can't ever see anything from my side, this is so unfair. So then she's in a state of anger, and then she just doesn't text her phone or pal, and over time they drift apart. Okay, so Sarah is different. That was a horrible thing, and maybe I should apologise. People can be stubborn sometimes, so her emotion is forgiving and regretful. Sarah accepts some of the responsibility, so it's not like she has to take on all the responsibility for the whole fight, but we have to acknowledge when sometimes we do something that might upset another person, rather than living in a kind of victim angry state. Sarah's taking responsibility and saying, right, okay, we're not perfect, but let's work through it. And that's how you develop stronger relationships, and if you can both communicate and also put your hands up when something's not perfect, And another wee situation here, so this is a wee exercise for you to do. So write down an alternative rational thought for each of the following situations. So Emma's cut up by another driver and has to slam on the brakes. This is one of my favourite examples because people think I'm like such a pacifist in the car. I just don't sweat this stuff. I don't think anything of people that cut me up. I don't take it personally, but many people do. So that thought is, what a arse or whatever, doesn't care about anybody but itself, could have crashed, and then she feels angry. And then she starts driving aggressively to provoke the driver to cut her up. and then she gets home and shouts at her boyfriend. So somebody else is in control of all of her emotional states there. Do you see that? Somebody else has pushed her buttons and created a whole bunch of drama for her. Her night has just went like that, downhill, with somebody cut her up. So what could a rational thought be, and what could she do differently if, if you were looking at Emma, right? But think about it from your point of view. If you would think something like that, what would a more rational thought be? And what would a new kind of emotional behaviour be? So you could think something like, well, that guy must be in a hurry, wonder what's going on for him. So maybe offering a bit of compassion or empathy, because we don't know, why is somebody driving, and driving crazy to get somewhere. We don't know what's going on for them either. So another thought could be, oh, I'm not in a rush, or or how rude. It's all right to just still feel how rude, but to allow yourself to be emotionally then connected to this person's behaviour is where you give all your power away. So, what could be a different emotion that you could feel? You could just feel nothing about it. You could talk to your boyfriend, oh God, that motorway was a nightmare. So you could do things differently, or say, Emma could have done things differently, and it would have saved her a good bit of pain, I would say. Here's another example. Tom notices a girl on the bus who keeps looking at him. Do you have something that he's thinking to yourself, I've got something in my face, is my fly down, maybe I smell or something, I need to go home, take a shower. Feeling self-conscious and anxious, and then avoids the girl and rushes off the bus without looking at her. So the thoughts are so powerful here. There was another situation, it's not on this one, but it's one of my favourites actually, and it's somebody walks past you in the street, and the thought could be, oh, what have I done? Why are they ignoring me? But the person in the street is just in their own mind because they've got their own life and problems, and something's going on for them. So we make all sorts of assumptions, based on not really a lot of evidence, to be fair, but that's just how we are designed as humans, to kind of look almost for the negative. The negative thought will come easier because it goes way back to our kind of survival stuff from when we were, in the old caves. So thinking the worst was how we stayed alive, but actually now it doesn't really serve us. It actually kind of hinders us. So that's really, to give you a wee insight, is really to get you thinking about, what do I think when stuff like that happens? When there's a situation that I notice there's a negative outcome for, what are you thinking? How do you feel? What's the emotion that comes up for you? And then how do you act? What does that look like for you? So keeping a wee kind of just becoming aware of that. I'm going to talk about positive mindset. So I've said it before, I talk a lot about toxic positivity, so pretending that everything's amazing isn't good for you. There's like standing in a garden full of weeds going, oh, there's no weeds, it's just so amazing here. That's not useful. Actually getting done and doing the weeding is how you get no weeds. But how we talk to ourselves is kind of like starting the weeding process, and if you are a kind of negative self-talk, then that can be really it can be really difficult for people to get themselves out of that. So imagine it, I call it like the poison parrot sitting on your shoulder, and it's just feeding poison and negativity into you. And over time, you start to believe that to be true when it's absolutely not true. So notice how you talk to yourself. Are you encouraging? Would you, is this how you would talk to your best friend? Would you allow your best friend to talk to you like that? And that, what kind of words and language do you use? Do you encourage yourself? So, I know, I'm going to speak from a female perspective here, but I know, we kind of, a lot of women will very harshly criticise how they look, what their body's like, when they stand in front of the mirror, instead of celebrating the absolute gorgeousness of themselves, like they'll look for what they would perceive to be flaws, and then that's how that kind of negative self-talk flourishes really in that environment. So it's not about necessarily changing the talk, but it's about changing the focus of your talk. Is it helpful? Does it support me? Does it coach me? Does it encourage me? And what can I do with that? Can you do something different? So I do an exercise where we kind of practice positive self-talk or statements, and now this can be done in a lot of different ways, right? But stand in front of a mirror and try and look yourself in the eyes and try and say something positive to yourself. Like, I am beautiful, I am lovable, I am worthy, I am intelligent, whatever word probably feels the most uncomfortable for you, try it out. And it can be really difficult because when you're standing brushing your teeth looking in the mirror in the morning, your head is full of all sorts of other chatter. Not always good stuff that gets you kind of in the right zone. So think about a distressing situation, something you can tell yourself that will help you get through. So whatever the distressing situation, so it could be a work situation, for example, maybe a meeting that's going to be difficult. What could you use as a positive coping statement in that? So that doesn't need to be verbalised, but internally, what could you be saying to yourself? So could it be, I'm good enough, I'm helpful, I'm grateful, I'm enough, I'm smart, I'm strong. Whatever that statement is for you, practice it. Write it down on a bit of paper, put it in your purse, your wallet, whatever. Put it on your computer, something that you see every day, just a wee gentle reminder. Because harsh words stick and positive words take a wee bit longer to embed. It's not easy to get into that kind of mindset, particularly if you've had quite a negative experience so far. So yeah, it's a wee bit of that, but do the exercise in the mirror. I do strongly recommend it. It's difficult and it can feel really quite an uncomfortable experience, but I think it's worth really recognising that this stuff's really important because it's kind of nobody else's job in the world to make you feel good and make you believe in yourself. Nobody's going to do that for you. So these are the tools to get you to do that, to help with the thought processes, to help bring the love and the joy and the goodness out in life, reduce those stress levels, and you looking after you. That's for me, that's what this is all about. So I touched on earlier gratitude, which is a positive emotional state that we can switch our gear into. I find gratitude journaling just a really joyful experience, but I remember working with people who have had really difficult lives, a lot of trauma. They don't have anything, live in poverty, a lot of adverse experiences, and rolling out a gratitude journal doesn't really feel that authentic in that kind of moment. But actually, it's the simple things, like what are we grateful for? So it's kind of a reminder because we can really get focused on the tough stuff. But what else have we got going on? So start with you're alive, feet on the floor. I got up today, and build from there. So start. I've got a nice comfortable bed, a warm room, a nice duvet, a roof over my head, whatever that may be for you, and then build it out, friends and partners and children and love. It's very easy to get lost in the bullshit, and get sucked under. But it's nice to take a wee 5 minutes and just remind yourself that actually you've got a lot of good stuff going on. And it might not always feel like that, but it's still there. So I would encourage you in your book that you get to start looking at creating a wee journal. I do mine in the morning because I just think it tees me up for a nice day. So I meditate and then I do my gratitude journal in just 5 minutes, and I write a wee list of things down. And they tend to be quite similar, but I also use it as a focus for something that I might feel quite negative about. So it might be a negative or a really challenging experience happening in my life, and I will turn that into something to be grateful for because it's teaching me something. I don't always see the lesson right away, but it is everything. Every experience is a teachable experience. So I would encourage you, but again, because this might be new to some people, this might feel a bit clunky. So there's going to be a tool in the next part which will look something like this. It'll ask you those questions, and then you can just fill in the blanks. Just to give you a wee place to start. You don't need to answer every one, but it's just about what was good about today, who's somebody's company that you enjoyed, lessons you've learned, people you admire. It'll help prompt you to feel gratitude. And while you're writing about gratitude, I want you to notice how you feel. So if you've never done this before, you might actually start to feel quite emotional. You might even feel a wee bit anxious. All of that's totally normal because you're maybe not used to practicing it, but the idea being is when we are in any kind of position, you can switch that emotional state into a state of gratitude, and in that state of gratitude, you feel good. That is ultimately what we're trying to do: is get you to feel good. We feel relaxed, we feel safe, we feel warm and fuzzy, and we feel joy and we feel good. So if you've not done this before, I really strongly encourage you to make this part of your practice in life. Again, these things don't just work if you do them once. They take a bit of time to get yourself into. So if you come off of this, finish this lesson, go on to the gratitude practice, and then I'm going to do a wee visualization for you as well, which is it's a lovely visualization. It's not necessarily like a meditation, so you're not in silence. I'm going to guide you through a visualization, which will take a few minutes, and again, it will help hopefully bring that soothe system in for you. So anyway, I have my lessons that I've rambling on. I said 15-20 minutes, now I've took up half an hour, so I'm grateful. Thank you for your time this week. Thanks for being here. I hope you've taken some learning from this and experience from this, and I hope it's been useful, and we'll see you next week. So there'll be, I think what we'll be doing next week, we're going to do some physical health stuff next week, and then on to the relationships and values. So get cracking with your gratitude journaling, and enjoy the visualization, and I'll see you next week.